Hello, my friends. My name is Jack Descartes, and this is Sentinel Circle. Thank you for being here with us. Let's go ahead and get right into the story, which is actually a double whammy today. The reason why I specifically chose this story, even though the initial article is back in April, is a lot of people I learned do not know what a Brady List is. And my hope is, first off, I don't want you to get into any legal trouble, but if you do, definitely look into if any of the officers that are involved in your case are on the Brady List, because if that's the case, that could really damage the prosecution's case against you. So we're going to just go over these two articles, just kind of show you how serious a situation like this is. And to show that, even someone as high as your county sheriff, if he's on that list, it's quite devastating in the whole grand scheme of the situation. The other reason why I want to talk about this is because this guy's a scumbag, and I think bringing attention to what he did, even though he's no longer allowed to be a police officer, is still important to talk about. So many facets to this story here. So let's go ahead and let's read it. So I'm not familiar with Deschutes County. I think it's somewhere around Portland. So that might pardon me, it's actually in Central Oregon, since this is the Central Oregon Daily News. Anyways, it's in an area that I'm not familiar with. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. It says here, Deschutes County Sheriff Kent Kamp has been placed on the county's Brady List, signaling he may no longer be considered a credible witness in court. Okay, so again, the Brady List is not really supposed to be public. The DA has access to it because they're the ones that make it and curate that list. You, as the defense, may not have access to it unless you specifically request it. And even then, it has to have some kind of impact on your case in order to get access to it. Now, of course, that doesn't protect it from FOIA requests. For those who don't know, FOIA is Freedom of Information requests. Not everybody can just, let me rephrase. Anybody can go file a FOIA, but the problem is a FOIA usually comes with a bill, and a lot of people can't really afford a bill like that. It's several $1,000s for research and stuff. So it's kind of, even though it's a request for information, it's not accessible to a lot of people, unfortunately. So it would be very difficult for you to get access to it as a citizen. And like I said, you can get access in a situation where you're being criminally charged. But even then, that's, takes hearings and stuff like that. And again, I'm not an attorney. I know that every state has a process. Not every state has a Brady List. They call it something else on the East Coast. Brady List is more of a West Coast thing, if I recall correctly. But I know that some areas in the East Coast have something similar. Anyways, but again, talk to an attorney if you need help with your legal cases. Don't listen to me. Anyways, so back to us, Sam. The district attorney alleges the sheriff gave false testimony in at least 2 DUII, or, driving while intoxicated, whatever you want to call it, under influence of intoxicants. Everybody has their own term. It's the same principle, though. In at least 2 DUII cases, and is now reviewing every case where Kamp took the stand. That's how serious this situation is. Because once you're found to be on that Brady List, or once you are put on that Brady List, every single case that officer was involved with now has to go through a reviews process. And in a lot of cases, those convictions are thrown out. You'll never get reimbursement. You'll never get your time back. You're going to get dragged through the freaking mud and possibly bankrupt, all because of one individual's lies. That's why it's super important, you know. And I know everyone says, well, if you've done nothing wrong, you got nothing to fear. No, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but even if you did nothing wrong, as we've seen time and time again, a police officer, all he has to do is plant drugs in your car or say he smelled alcohol in your breath. There's another case that was just recent where the cop ended up getting fired at the end, but he arrested a guy for because again the cop claimed there was a smell of alcohol, and the guy blew zero. Can you imagine that? The guy blew zero. And then the cop was like, well, you know, maybe there's something else going on. He's wanting to draw blood and all that stuff. And you could see in the body cam footage that the guy's kind of like, really? We're really going to go through this? So I just want you to know that even if you have nothing to hide, even if you think that you've done nothing wrong, they're going to do whatever they can to completely destroy you, because at the end of the day, the process is the punishment. You know, they don't have to find you guilty of anything. All they care about is putting you through the process just to screw with you, just to mess with you. That's it. That's all they got to do. Okay? And you, as a citizen, have no recourse. Okay? So let's continue. On April 11th, sorry, I keep hitting my mic. Let me adjust myself a little bit so that way I'm more in frame and more handsome. On April 11th, DA Steve, Gunnels, Steve Gunnels, we're going to call him Steve Gunnels. He's now Steve Gunnels. Placed Kamp on the Brady List after concerns were raised about his testimony in 2 felony DUI cases, both of which ended in acquittals on the DUI charges. And that means that it went to trial. Both those cases went to trial, and the guy was found, or the individuals were found not guilty. That's how far it went. I mean, can you believe that? And a lot of people think that, because we have, the Fourth Amendment, right to speedy and public trial. It's either fourth or fifth. I don't have my my Bill of Rights in front of me. When you are in with your attorney, the first thing they have you sign is a waiver of those rights. Because, even though you have your constitutional right, every state also has a constitution with some variation of the Bill of Rights. But there's more stipulations. And I think Oregon, you have 90 days, if I recall correctly, before you have to go to trial. But like I said, the first thing they do is they have you sign your those rights away, so that way your attorney has more time to prepare the case. Because by the time you're indicted and all those things, they feel they have a strong case against you. So, I mean, the only reason why you sign those documents is so that way you have a better chance of beating those charges. Again, even though our system is quote unquote fair and balanced, it's very stacked against you. But I mean, to be fair, I would rather be in this system than the Japanese system. They straight up beat confessions out of you there. So, and they have a 99% conviction rate. Go figure. Anyways, so back to what I was saying here. According to the DA's office, it was Kamp's own public comments during his 2023 campaign that tipped off a source to possible inconsistencies dating back to 2012. So already we got a 10-year lie going on here. And this guy is credible on the stand. I hate to say that, but that's not good. Brady lists are used to track law enforcement officers whose credibility has been called into question, often due to past dishonesty. Law experts say such a designation can make an officer virtually unusable in court. And what it boils down to is, during cross-examination, and again, this is what was explained to me, and this is my observations. I've never gone to law school. I'm sure there's probably an attorney that's screaming at a screen right now saying, no, that's not correct. And if you are an attorney, please correct me and let's have a conversation about it. I'd love to talk to you. But usually during cross-examination, the goal is to destroy that individual's credibility. Because once you have a shred of doubt onto their credibility, at least in like a jury's eyes, that throws everything that they said out the window. And they do the same stuff to like expert witness. It happens with every single witness. Let me put it that way. Every single witness is like that. But for some reason, law enforcement is kind of exempt from that. Because the moment you put that badge on, all of a sudden you're kind of above being a human, with emotions and feelings and all that stuff. And, you apparently can't do wrong, even though, you can wind up having relations with a 16-year-old girl. But, that's besides the point. And for anybody that doesn't know, that was a quip from my past. I strongly encourage you to watch my first video to find out why I said that. Anyways, back to us saying, if they once took an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and there was some kind of finding or belief that they were dishonest under oath, then the oath doesn't mean anything to them. Exactly. That oath is very sacred. And a lot of people think that it's like, symbols, and like people sit there and say, well, the flag's a piece of cloth, or, swearing on the stand has no bearing. Well, no, it doesn't. All that stuff has bearing because people put bearing into that. At the end of the day, an oath is just words. A flag is just a piece of cloth. It's what people put behind it that's what has meaning, right? So that's why these things are so important, because the moment you show your true character, that's when the issue becomes apparent, right? If you take an oath and you're lying through your freaking teeth while taking that oath, well, yeah, then it shows that you're a person that will just sit there and take an oath just to appease everyone, and then you'll just sit there and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. That's exactly what this dude probably did. Vanderkamp denies the allegation. Of course he does. In a written statement, he says, I am deeply disappointed by the recent decision by District Attorney Steve Gunnels to place me on the Brady List. I am working closely with my command team, legal counsel, and county officials to fully understand the implications of this decision and carefully evaluate the best path forward. That's very fascinating. Professor Yin says it's uncommon for a sheriff or police chief to be added to a Brady List, calling the move significant. And this is factually correct. Usually when these officers... okay. Let me back up. When you get promoted within the department, typically, and again, there's probably cops that are going to sit there and say, well, no, that's not factually correct. I'm saying, generally speaking, this is what a lot of police officers with a lot of different departments have told me about. A lot of things are weighed. And again, a big department like, say, New York Police Department is going to behave completely differently compared to your local 10-officer department. Okay? In a way, it's a quasi-military structure, right? You have ranks, and a lot of it is time and service, time and grade. You also, it's obvious that a lot of officers are going to have complaints against them, okay? You got that drug dealer that says, well, the cop beat him once, even though that was not true, and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff is taken into consideration during a promotion, okay? However, there's a difference here. A sheriff is usually elected, and this man, we stated here, he ran for office in 2023. So it's even more significant than, say, a police officer who just happened to be hired and rise to the rank. Let me put it this way. It really just depends on the department. It depends on the city, state, county. A lot of things, a lot of changes, a lot of rules. Let me just put it that way. There's a lot of inconsistency. Okay. But the reason why this is significant is because he did get elected with the public trust, okay? And if he's lying during his campaign, which, I ran for office too. Let's be frank. Everybody lies, okay? Let's just be frank about it. Everybody lies. I ran, and I didn't really talk about my criminal record. Someone brought it up to the news, and I had a spotlight on me, and it made me look like a piece of dirt, and I do believe that had an impact on my election. Did I intentionally deceive people? I would say that I personally don't feel that way. It was a private matter, and it should have no bearing on how I lead the people, because, there are a lot of dirtbags out there that are in public positions who are just profiting off of their constituency. Would I have profited off of them? No, because I don't believe in that. I was running, in a way, I had an axe to grind. I'm not going to sit there and beat around the bush on it. I did have an axe to grind, and I didn't want what happened to me to happen to other people. And that was kind of the main reason for my election. Anyways, so like I said, this is probably the biggest reason why I'm going through this, is the guy was elected as sheriff. Anyway, so back to this. This is a person who's supposed to be providing oversight over all officers, and yet has been deemed, in the judicial system at least, to be untrustworthy. Again, that's why this is so important. I'm at 17 minutes right now. Now the DA's office is reviewing every case Kamp was involved in to determine if false testimony may have impacted the outcome. Any conviction in question could be overturned or retired. Now, I just want everybody to understand the impact that this jerk had. I'm guessing, based on what I know about him, he's been in law enforcement for about 30 years. So imagine 30 freaking years. 30 years of untold amounts of man hours to convict someone. Because it's not just a cop. There's a whole apparatus behind that cop. So when a cop arrests you, you have the whole apparatus working on that case on the assumption that the officer is telling the truth. Those are resources that could be used to, I don't know, catch a murderer, catch a serial rapist, catch God knows what, because look, it's not like there isn't crime. Even in your smaller communities where like the cops are obviously bored, there's still crime there. There's still a county's worth of crime everywhere, because that apparatus is being handled by the county system, not like your city system, unless you're in New York or LA or something, where then it is the city. But there's a whole apparatus. And like I said, situations like this waste untold millions and billions of dollars. This guy, because of his lies, have wasted so many hours, so much money, so much time and effort on things that could be better used. Because at the end of the day, we live in a finite world. Money doesn't grow on trees. Time marches on. We even though like time seems infinite, there's even a limit on time. you know? So it irritates me that this guy got away with it. Well, I mean, he didn't get away with it, but he got away with it. Anyways, we're gonna continue on here. The Oregon Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, which is Oregon's, they handle things like your concealed carry, as well as like security guards, police officers, all that stuff. You have to be certified with them to do any of that stuff. A lot of states have a structure like that. So Oregon's is like that. I think Texas has a Department of Public Safety, but they handle like the DMV and stuff too. So again, different states do different things. Anyways, Oregon Department of Public Safety Standards and Training is reviewing whether the decision to place Kamp on the Brady List was justified and whether he should lose his law enforcement certification. A decision is expected by the end of the week. If Kamp is decertified, it is not yet clear whether he would be legally disqualified from serving as a sheriff. And again, this is how big it is. Because if he's decertified because he's on the Brady List, which happens quite a bit, he could lose being a sheriff, which means he'd be forced to step down or legally removed from the office. Anyway, so that's the first story. And then there was an update that I'm going to bring up. And this, again, the date on this was April 14th of this year. So, July 24th, so about a month ago, Oregon Public Broadcasting, which I get it, it's public broadcasting, but hey, even the other side can have good articles, okay? Don't close your mind off to any information, please. Let's continue. State board votes to ban resigning Deschutes County Sheriff from ever returning to Oregon law enforcement. So he's got a lifetime ban. That's how bad the situation was. So let's go ahead and read this. Deschutes County Sheriff Kent Kamp is not fit to serve. Think about that. He is not fit to serve as a police officer for life. That was the decision Thursday from the board overseeing Oregon's Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. The agency is responsible for issuing peace officer certifications and reviewing certain misconduct complaints against law enforcement. The DPSST board decision came after a staff investigation found multiple incidences, keyword here, multiple, of alleged dishonesty by Kamp over the course of his 20-year career with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Department. So he had a career, and I was almost right on the money, 20 years with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. You know, I kind of already read this article, so I kind of know the punchline to this article. But we'll continue. I'll let the story naturally play out. Kamp was elected to lead the office last November, which was 2023, and this was 2025. Wait a minute. What? Their timeline doesn't make sense. Oh, you know what? It must have been... You know, it doesn't matter. That part of the timeline doesn't matter. He was a sheriff, and now he's gone. Let's put it that way. With mounting public pressure to leave office, the sheriff announced his resignation last month. His last day will be July 31st, just 7 months into his first term. The County Board of Commissioners plans to appoint an interim sheriff next Tuesday, days ahead of Kamp's exit. Kamp and his lawyers, plural, did not respond to requests for comment, and they never do. You know, I absolutely hate that freaking line that journalists do. Okay, I'm going to give you a quote, and I'm going to repeat it multiple times, not just in this movie, or in this video, but in other videos. History's first draft is written by journalists. I heard that today. I wish I had coined it because it's good. It's very good. And I never thought of it. But history's first draft is written by journalists. You know, and this is what I hate about journalists is they got all these gotcha moments. You know, they send emails requesting for comment. Well, no attorney worth their salt will ever comment on an ongoing case, ever. Because that can be used against them in court. Okay? But as you can tell right here, it looks bad. It always looks bad. You know, the court, there's two courts, and I freaking hate this. You know, as much as I agree with, you know, the trial should be public, I don't think this is what the founders had in mind. Because, you know, back then they had secret courts and, you know, you wake up one day and that person's guilty. You have no idea what was going on, none of it. But you have two courts. You got the actual courtroom, right? And then you have the court of public opinion. And, you know, think of what you will about OJ. He won in the courtroom, but he lost the court of public opinion. Okay, really lost it bad. You know, I'm not going to sit there and speculate on OJ's case, but he's probably the most perfect example of this, where the whole public just, you know, speculates on God knows what, whereas, you know, he managed to get off in the trial, and, you know, jurors have come out and said that had they known about half the stuff, because, you know, what a lot of people don't understand is, you know, when it comes to courtrooms, there's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, and a lot of things that they have to do and they can't do in order to have as close to a fair trial as possible, which, you know, God bless it. But when it comes to the court of public opinion, all bets are off. You know, any swinging moron who heard something from their freaking cousin twice removed gets 15 minutes of fame on the news, and they can say whatever the heck they want, you know, just so that they can get onto the camera for a little bit and say, hey, you know, I was in the news, you know, whereas that same information would be excluded in an actual courtroom. Because who is this dude? How is he involved? You know, he heard, I mean, have any of you people who listen to me played the telephone game in school? I don't know if you have. If you had, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You start with a phrase, and then by the time it gets around the room and it goes through 30 freaking years, the whole thing changed. You know, it's horrible how easily you lose the message across so many people. So that's what I'm saying is witness testimony is like the worst. But what scares me is, you know, you have witness testimony, and that's the only thing that like convicts a lot of people, is just the word of someone, you know, and you're expected to remember that a couple years after the fact. Anyways, sorry, I went on another tangent there. I apologize. Back to what I was saying here. In April, DPSST officials found Kamp intentionally didn't tell Oregon officials he was previously fired from a police department in California. That's really what it boils down to. When you transition to Oregon and you get your DPSST licensing, you have to tell them if you've been fired in any other department anywhere in the world. What's scary, though, what is completely scary, is they don't do any check. You know, I'm sure a simple background check would have found that he worked for a department in the past. And all they would have had to do is call that freaking place up. But I already know the counter to that argument, which is we got so many applications, we can't go through all of them. I know. You know, it boils down to, you know, you need infinite resources, but we live in a finite society. Oh God, this makes me so angry. But you know what? I like I said, I know what the answer is because I've seen it. I've lived it. They got a stack of files that freaking huge that they have to go through. There's no way they can get to it in a reasonable amount of time. You know, it's just look. I'm not. I don't mean to get political. I really don't. I really, really don't. But this is why, you know, background checks, universal background checks for firearms just doesn't work. You know, because in a lot of cases, they're like, if we don't hear back, you could just take the gun. It's up to the discretion of the dealer, you know? So, and 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, well, we didn't hear back, so here it is. So then what does it even matter? We might as well just start passing out weapons like candy. You know? I mean, I understand, but with so many records that's used to make a background check work still in paper form, you can't get everything instantaneously. It takes time. It takes research. All right, let's continue. A separate investigation conducted by Deschutes County District Attorney Steve Gunnels found Vanderkamp gave false testimony about his education while under oath in multiple criminal trials dating back to 2013. So not only did this guy, Vanderkamp, lie about being fired from a police department previously, he also lied about his education. It's very interesting. I wonder what that lie was. I hope that it's covered in this article. I don't think it is, but I'm going to look. Gunnels has directed local prosecutors to no longer call on Vanderkamp as a witness for the county. Again, that's what the Brady List is for. In May, the DPSST Police Policy Committee unanimously voted to recommend revoking his certifications. That's how bad it was. I think the committee is it's a 3-person board. They voted unanimously to remove his certifications. That's how egregious this was. It wasn't like a 2-1 decision. No. This was unanimous. The committee found that he violated moral fitness standards and should be banned for life from serving as a peace officer in Oregon. Now, that's not to say that he's just not going to go to the next state over and try and be a cop there. The only downside to this is now that all this is in the news, all someone has to do is a quick Google search and his name's going to pop up with all this. He's not going to be able to get a job. But he's got his retirement at this point. He's fine. He'll walk away from this. Thursday's full DPSST board vote was largely a formality, and board members did not publicly discuss Vanderkamp's case. Again, they can't discuss it. It's a personnel matter. Even though he is a public figure, he still has a certain expectation of privacy regarding certain things. We don't have that same expectation, but you know what? That's fine. Like, you know, when you go to a courtroom, everything that you've ever done, every time you scratched your ass, anytime you've ever done any of that, that's all coming out. But this guy, you know, when it comes to his record, even though he's a cop and he's quote unquote a public official, all that's got to be quiet. We can't talk about it. DPSST has already issued its notice of intent to revoke Vanderkamp's certifications. Vanderkamp's lawyers have signaled that they will fight the decision, and they requested a contested case hearing, according to DPSST spokesman Sam Tenney. Vanderkamp's certification remains active during the appeals process. So, I mean, he's stepping down as sheriff. I'm guessing he's probably going to go back to work as a deputy, which the new sheriff would be stupid to let him anywhere near, simply because he's on the Brady List already. Like, he can't do patrol. The only thing he could really do is admin work. But if he's dishonest, now all his officers are going to not trust him. Like, everything he does from here on out is always going to have that taint about him. With Vanderkamp set to leave office on July 31st, 5 candidates hoping to replace him have officially filed applications with the county. County commissioners say they plan to appoint an interim sheriff during a public meeting on July 29th. And because he stepped down during his term, someone gets appointed, and then when they run for election, they have the coveted incumbent right next to their name in the ballot. I just want everybody to understand one thing. I don't like when people have the word incumbent on the ballot next to their name, because statistically speaking, with that on there, they're more likely to get voted back in. It is almost next to impossible to vote out an incumbent. It's like all incumbents have like a 95% retention rate or something like that. It's extraordinarily high. So yeah, whoever gets appointed is basically the new sheriff until he decides to step down or retire or God knows what. We don't need to know about the actually, here's some interesting stuff. We'll go through this. The 5 candidates are all long-serving officers in the region. They include Captain Paul Kansky, Deputy Chief of Police of Bend Police Department. So this is a Bend area. Okay, I understand where this area is now. Lieutenant James McLaughlin with Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, Captain Ty Rupert with the Sheriff's Office, Under Sheriff Aaron Wells, and Deacon McMaster, a former Sheriff's Office captain who resigned in 2021. McMaster later sued the office alleging retaliation and civil rights violations following a demotion by former Sheriff Shane Nelson. So out of those ones, Under Sheriff Aaron Wells, who's basically the second in command there, he's going to get the position. They're going to appoint him. Simply because one is he already is in the department. He's probably doing the job already because of freaking Vanderkamp being a moron. McMaster, because he sued the sheriff's department in the past, he's not going to be selected because the county. The problem is if you ever sue any government agency, you're put on a list, and they'll never hire you for any position whatsoever because you're a liability at that point. Again, you know, when people say, well, you can sit there and sue. Yeah, you can sue, but don't be surprised at the consequences of lawsuits. You know, I really hate this. I really freaking hate, and I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I really hate that we're told that we can do this, that, and the other, but we're never, ever, ever told about the unintended consequences of those actions. You know, I watched this video. The dude runs a pressure washing business, and he got hired to do this pressure wash. And he offered to also paint the parking lot lines for this dude's parking lot for an upcharge. He's trying to upsell the dude. Standard practice. I get it. The business owner that was hiring this dude said, no, it was recently done. You know, even though the dude, the pressure washer saw it and he's like, that's over 5 years old. And if anybody ever knows anything about paint and pressure washers, you know, if the paint's flaking, it's going to get torn up. And here's the thing. So the dude did the pressure wash. The paint came up. And then the business owner, the guy that hired the pressure washer, invoked a clause in the contract saying that the pressure washer had to repaint the parking lot for free. Hey, can you freaking imagine that? The business owner knew what was going to happen. He knew it. He was getting a parking lot painted for freaking free out of the deal. You know, that I hate to say it, but like when it comes to small business owners, they are some of the I almost swore they are some of the suckiest freaking people out there. Some of the really scummiest, suckiest people out there. You know, they will screw anybody for a freaking nickel. You know, and what's even more messed up, and this is what really irritates me out of that whole situation, is they have the legal backing to do so. Because they freaking know that if you sue them, good luck trying to get money out of them for it. You know, they know all the rules, they know all the regulations, and in the case of family-owned businesses with giant families, all they got to do is declare bankruptcy and sell the business to one of the relatives. That's it. That's all they got to do. You know, there's so much wrong in this world, and it just drives me up a wall. You know, and I wish I could do something about it, but the older I get, the more I realize that it's this way for a reason. You know. Anyways, let's continue on here. We're almost done. The Deschutes County Sheriff's Office Employee Association hosted a candidate forum this month where 4 of the 5 candidates spoke about their experiences and plans for the office should they be appointed. 4 out of the 5. I wonder who wasn't there. Each said they would first focus on improving morale within the office and rebuilding trust with the greater community. What? Let me take a pause here. Yeah, I know we're already 41 minutes into 2 articles. We're actually doing pretty okay. Why is it that the police department always is trying to rebuild trust with the community? Why is that? You know, I always read stories, and maybe it's because, you know, all the stories I read are about corrupt cops and all that stuff. But like, I never ever see that with anybody else. It's always police departments where they're constantly rebuilding trust with the community. You know, one bad apple spoils the bunch. I mean, I know that there's like firefighters that start fires just to put them out because they want to feel like heroes. There's doctors that'll harm patients just so they can heal them and be heroes. I understand that, but it always seems like it's the police that is constantly going through this cycle of rebuilding trust, then breaking it, rebuilding, then breaking, rebuilding, then breaking. I don't understand. Well, we all know why, but I don't know. It really bothers me that it's always like that. Every single department, we got to rebuild trust. That's what we're gonna do, is a campaign of rebuilding trust, and they never fully rebuild trust. They may. Sorry, I'm enjoying my morning coffee. There may be a time where they I don't know, you know, one public leader says, "Okay, we trust you again," and then that's when it stops, right? I don't have trust. Do you have trust? Because I don't. You know, these leaders they don't represent me. That's the one thing I've learned is the majority of these leaders, and it's hard for them to represent one person. That's the whole point of our system. Is we elect a representative to represent a group of people, you know, and everyone sits there and says, well, I got to hold my nose while I vote. Well, that's how the system's designed. You know, you're never going to get someone who fully represents you. You're going to get someone who's close. I got a whole spiel on it. Let me just say that when I ran for election, everybody should run for election once to really understand what it takes to run. But that won't happen. They'll just sit there and say, "Oh, this prick doesn't represent me." All right. So let's go back to this. Following the forum, the union held a ranked choice vote to advise county commissioners on who its members prefer. So this was the union. That's fine. But this is representing the sheriff's department. Not any other department and not the people. Just the department. Funny how that works out. McLaughlin, okay, so, yeah, the lieutenant with the county sheriff's office was top choice. With Rupert. Who's Rupert? The captain. So the two of the three members of two of the three members from the sheriff's department. Interesting. So it says here, so McLaughlin, the lieutenant, came out as top choice. Rupert, the captain, came second. Daniel Graham, union president, said that there was about 80% voter turnout among the roughly 200 members, with 10 people abstaining. I wonder why 10 abstained. That's interesting. McLaughlin filed a tort claim notice with the county last year, claiming he experienced retaliation and discrimination by former Sheriff Nelson for supporting Vanderkamp's candidacy and being involved with union organizing. After the election, Vanderkamp promoted McLaughlin to lieutenant in February. That's a very interesting tidbit. Graham said he provided the union vote to county commissioners, some of whom have indicated that the results will weigh heavily on their consideration. Of course it does. However, at the time of the vote, the county was still accepting applications, and Cansey with the police department had not yet applied. Additionally, Corey Darling, a former or forum participant, did not formally apply to the county. We voted based on the information we had available to us at the time, Graham said. Once appointed, the interim sheriff will serve until the next elected sheriff is sworn in. A special election for that position is planned for May 19, 2026, which again, the interim will probably run. He'll have incumbent right next to his name on the ballot, simply because he is in that position. If I recall correctly, Oregon, it doesn't matter if you're appointed or if you are elected, you'll have incumbent right next to your name come your next election because you're just in that office. In fact, fun conspiracy for everyone. So in a lot of circuit courts in Oregon, what happens is the judges who are planning on retiring, they'll run, right? And then they'll retire during their tenure. Let's say they ran 4 terms, and their 4th term they win. They'll retire during that 4th term, and then they'll have another person appointed to that position, that judicial appointment or that judicial position, and then that person, when they run for circuit court judge, has incumbent, and therefore they're statistically going to win, because let's be honest, how many people pay attention to those elections? And that happens everywhere in Oregon. You get into a position through attrition, and then come your next election, people just vote you because they always vote incumbent. He's doing a good job, might as well. Anyways, so that the whole point of this was, specifically speaking, the whole point of this was I wanted to talk about how a Brady List works. And as you can see, once you're on the Brady List, that's a big deal. It's a bigger deal when you are a sheriff's officer versus when you're running for sheriff, I should say. Let me put it that way. Versus if you're just a member of the office. Okay. And a lot of people don't know what a Brady List is. I would strongly encourage everyone to look up what a Brady List is, understand it, so that way if you are in the unfortunate position of you got to defend yourself in court, you at least understand that, hey, there's a chance that this dude is a liar. And he's a known liar. And that's really the difference between being on the list versus not being on the list, is if you're a known liar or not a known liar. And this guy, he lied multiple times, and he got caught with his pants down. He should not have run for election. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the position he's in now. Anyways, let me go ahead and fade over to myself. So let's do this. I'm going to take a break. We don't have ads, but I'm still going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and have comments and final thoughts. So don't go anywhere. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with comments. First one is from Shar Asnable. It says, damn, was too tired from work yesterday and fell asleep. I missed Hammer 2. Gotta watch it today. Well, thank you very much, Char. I'm just glad that you were considerate enough to think of me in your entertainment list. And thank you very much for being a continued friend and supporter of Sentinel Circle. And I just gotta say, it's always good to hear from you, my friend. Thank you so much. Next one from the Dark Cell. This was regarding our stream. So was the last comment. I probably should have updated that. It was fun. Thanks for having me. Dark Cell, you're always welcome. I'm sorry that we can't get your stream going. I owe you big. Dark Cell and I, he wanted to do a stream on the Kandahar Giant. That's why I did the whole video on the Kandahar Giant. Still owe him a stream. It's just life got in the way. So we're going to make it right at some point. Just haven't had the chance to do it yet because my work schedule is atrocious right now. In fact, I'm very lucky I found the time to record today. And just so everyone's aware, I'm going to also make a statement on Sentinel Circle's YouTube and all that stuff. We're going to shut down again for a couple weeks because I'm moving out of this apartment. Unfortunately, the the rent is too damn high. But seriously though, when I first moved to Austin, it got so desperate. I just said, let's just get a place. Doesn't matter the cost, all that stuff. I'll figure out the rest later, right? So I got a place. Turns out it was, I was able to swing it, but it was not going as well as I had hoped. And now I'm looking for a new place. But it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more centralized, within Austin. So that way I'm able to reach things right now. I'm not in Austin proper. I'm kind of in the suburbs of Austin. And that's kind of screwing me. I would like a little bit more access to certain features. I know like certain people have said, get out of the cities. There's nothing for you there. For me, there's plenty here. I'm not seeking to buy a home or anything like that. I'll talk about it in a future musings video. But like I got plans, I got ideas and plans. So let's go on. David GKK. This comment I really enjoyed seeing. It was very encouraging. So thank you, David. I appreciate that. But this inspired me to continue on with those musing videos. So let me go ahead and read it for you. Hey, dude, really digging these reflections and musing videos. 100% definitely encourages a lot of thought. And that was kind of the whole point of those musing videos. So what I'm going to do from here on out is once a week, I'm going to make one of those videos. I got to be honest with you, I enjoyed doing those videos. Like when I got back from Dallas this past week, I was exhausted. Just the thought of me doing videos was just like, oh God, I just can't do it. But I had a lot that I wanted to say and get out. So it was like, let's just record. If I swear, I won't edit it. I mean, if it's super egregious, okay, fine, we'll edit it. But if there's a couple naughty words in there, fine, whatever, fair game. Hit my mic again. So I said, we'll just do it like that, see what happens. And I got to be honest with you, the reception of those videos was very good. I'm very appreciative of everybody giving me encouraging words on those videos. And I think I'm going to, like I said, I'll do one a week. we'll call it Musing Mondays or something like that. I don't like low effort stuff. I do want a little bit of effort put into the videos, simply because, like, you know, if I wanted to do just pure slop, I could do pure slop. That's not the point of this. The point of this is it is partly for me, but it's also partly for you guys. I want you guys to know that, hey, there's someone at the end of the camera, and you know, there's authenticity there. You know, if I wanted to put AI slap out there, like, I could do that, and I'd probably make a ton more views. But no, I would rather do it this way, and I know it's going to hamstring me. That's fine. I will say that because of the YouTube changes and all that stuff, we will be changing the format a little bit. Some of the tags that I've been using in the past, I'm going to actually be actively getting rid of them, simply because I feel that they've actually been more of a detriment rather than a help. So there's some changes coming around in the background. Hopefully we reach a wider audience with them, but we'll continue on. We'll work at it. You know, that's what I love about the creative process, is it's a constant work in progress. Anyways, let's continue on. Evergreen, always good to hear from you, my friend. I hope the rest of your week goes well. Stay safe. Thank you very much, sir. And then Godfather Ramadi, love the avatar. I love Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus is he's hilarious. Anyways, Godfather, thanks for having me on, Jack. Enjoyed the topic, and that was again in reference to the live stream we did with our friend Sam Fisher and Alternative Societies. I will admit, I did not do that good of a job moderating the conversation. I don't like to moderate, because moderation to me is a restriction, and the most authentic ideas come from the most unrestrictive conversations. I also need to recognize that there are some people out there that, you know, let me put it this way. And this is nothing against Dark Cell. Dark Cell's a good guy. Sam Fisher's a good guy. They're both good guys. But when it comes to debate is not you trying to change the mind of the person you're debating. You're trying to win over the audience. And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of don't understand how debate works. They think that like, if I sat here and debated with Godfather, I'm not going to change his mind. He's not going to change my mind. Okay? That's not the point of debate. It's fun to debate. It's fun to have new ideas, new ways of thinking. But a lot of people don't debate because of those reasons. They debate because they have to either A, win, or be right, or be validated, or whatever. Okay? But when you have an audience for your debate, and that's really when I say debate, I'm talking about traditional debate. Like, there's two parties, there's a topic, one side represents one side, the other side represents the other side. Okay? Like high school, college debate. You know, the whole point is to bring all the facts onto the table, and the audience comes out wiser, and they, you know, at least understand what the subject is. But half the time when people debate, they don't understand what the subject is. And I will say, as a kind of an asterisk, I did serve on the debate team in high school and in college. Not like the official debate team in college, but kind of like a club kind of thing. But we debated fun topics like video games, board games, that kind of stuff. You know, and I don't mind debating, but again, it's all in good fun. As long as people have fun and people enjoy it, that's my goal. You know, I want people to learn something and to have fun while learning. That's one of the many goals I have on this channel. And I think that's the last comment. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's fade over. So, again, what a lot of people don't seem to understand is police officers are not infallible. In fact, they're very fallible. How do I want to say this? I brought this look, I brought this for one reason only. And that was, well, there's actually two reasons. One is, I don't like corruption. I really, really freaking hate corruption. I, myself, am the victim of police corruption, okay? And I'm very open about that. But the problem is when I am open about that, a lot of people think that I still did something wrong because they're like, well, he wouldn't have been arrested if he did nothing wrong. That's not true. You can still be arrested if you did nothing wrong. You can still have things seized if you have nothing wrong. If you gave me a month, I could come out with a stack of articles about yay big, all of which fit that profile. Okay. The problem is we take certain people at their word more than we should, i.e. law enforcement. We should not take law enforcement at their word 100%. You can trust, but verify. That's the whole point of a trial, is they're presenting all the evidence, and this is, again, the whole debate thing. All a trial is debate, okay? Debate, and at the end, like, someone is going to jail or they are released, And in fact, that's why we have rules like double jeopardy, because in other countries, if the prosecution did not get a conviction, they're just going to come at you again with different facts until they get the result they want. At least here, the whole point is the argument is so overwhelming that nobody can deny it. That's the whole point, And again, we sit here and we have these ideas about things like politics, religion, all that stuff. Well, those are so, pardon the expression, basic bitch conversations. Okay? Everybody's got an opinion on religion, politics, and all that stuff. But when it comes to a guy who ends up destroying a family, like I saw this one dash cam video, the guy, he's 19 years old. His dad was a local powerhouse, and he's sitting there asking officer names and badge numbers, like that somehow matters. And he was going 90 in a 30 zone. He ended up severing the spine of a 7-year-old girl, and the father of the little girl ended up passing in the car. And it was a slow, painful passing. And he ended up getting I think it was 2 years or something like that. It was heart-wrenching. And they didn't even, when the police showed up, they thought it was a one-vehicle crash. They had no idea there was a second vehicle involved for the first hour. And then once they found the second vehicle, a lot of people think that had they found the car sooner, the man would still be alive. But the little girl, 7 years old, she'll never walk again. So those are the kinds of cases where you don't really have an opinion. You don't know. It's chaotic. You have no idea what's going on. If it goes to trial, yeah, two sides have to meet and be like, okay, these are the facts within the rules of the debate. You need to vote on if this person did it or not. And that's the whole point of it. But when people lie, like this officer, or the sheriff, I should say, did, now everything comes into question, because I've seen it time and time again. There was a guy, he gets pulled over and he's never done, he doesn't even know what drugs look like. And all of a sudden he's got a baggie that the cop found, and it's shown later, a couple years later, oh, the cop planted the baggie. Well, now everything that cop ever did has to be put into question. Now we got to fix, to the best of our ability, what was made wrong. Simply because the guy was bored. You know, I just it's constant stories like that. You know, and I really hope that everybody here understands their rights enough to know, hey, something's wrong here, or hey, you know, tell your attorney, you know, maybe this guy isn't on the straight and narrow. I don't know. I saw this story here, and I thought it was a good story to present. You know, it's got everything. It's got corruption. It's got consequences, even though they may be like a pop, slap on the wrist. It had everything. You know, but at the same time, it's like, I already know the answer or the ending of the story. I already know it. I didn't even have to read the article, and I already saw the whole story play out. How he resigns, he loses his license for, you know, 1, 2, 10, or forever. Someone gets appointed, and then that guy who's appointed now has incumbent next to his name, and then he runs until he either resigns or is fired or whatever. I already see those stories, or those story beats, I should say. I don't like bringing. I mean, I like bringing stories like this for you, but I don't like bringing stories like this because I already know the end of it. It's kind of like, who said it? I can't remember the person who said it, but the quote was, there's only 7 stories out there or something like that, and everything is a variation of those 7 stories, and that's the honest to God truth. You know, you see the same stories play out over and over and over again. In fact, this guy, I called it. He worked for the department for 20 years, and then he became sheriff. I didn't even read the next art. Like, I kind of skimmed through it. I didn't see that part. I was like, he probably worked for 20 years. Sure enough, the whole getting fired from California, I didn't see that one coming. But that makes sense. You know, I wonder what the education was. I mean, more than likely, he said, I've been to many DUI courses, so I know what drunks look like. Because a lot of the issues stem from DUIs, so I would imagine that's what happened. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here because we're like over an hour on this. So, again, if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. I'm going to start promoting Discord more. I'm on Discord quite a bit because we're getting a really good community there. Definitely find us on Discord. In fact, I'm going to change the descriptions under the videos from here on out to emphasize the Discord. Have a link to join. Definitely join us. I'm on there. You're more than welcome to stop by, say hello. You know, we got some people talking about different things. We got book reviews, we got movie reviews, some good content there. I'm going to promote that until I get the website going, and then we're going to transition over to the website, and kind of do like, the Discord's kind of like, a sister sites, you know? So we got the website over here, Discord over here, and, you know, it's kind of like a live chat versus like, you know, website where all the information's at. Anyways, I think that's probably what we're going to do. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and be sure to like and subscribe. We're, as of right now, today's the 16th of August. We're at 90 subs. We're that close to getting 100. And when we hit that 100, I'm going to release a video celebrating it. So, yeah, definitely start sharing and start getting the word out there. Anyways, I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much for being here.